Hey everybody, welcome to Goshen Prepping. I have something huge I need to show you. First a video clip, then I'm going to show you the ramifications because of this. Watch this. This came out of Russia, apparently a military meeting. It seems a little showy, so probably a little bit staged, but you know what? What military meeting across the world is not staged? But it talks about how, well, the war in Russia is not going so well. And they, of course, we all know this, are blaming this on NATO. They're talking about Finland and Sweden is a serious destabilizing factor because of this. And now because of this, because of Finland, NATO has taken up more border space against Russia. They do not like that at all. And the militarization of Poland as well, and how Poland is simply just a puppet of the US. Not saying it is or isn't, but I'm simply just making a statement that all of this is an alarming video. Again, stick with it. Lots of large-scale weapons going in from US, UK, and South Korea. Tanks, artillery systems. We know about this, don't we? And they are seeing this, mark these words, a Polish-Ukrainian joint force. Understand what's happening here. They are not looking at this as simply as just NATO, but now Poland is part of this. And of course, they mark off how many soldiers and vehicles, etc., are coming into this situation, right next to the border, the Russian-Belarus border. And here it is. The aforementioned threats to Russia's military security demand prompt and appropriate measures. And we'll discuss what those steps are, by the way. This is very alarming. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not taking sides on this. I am not pro-Russia. I am not pro-Ukrainian. I am pro staying out of wars and not having to deal with all this garbage. But here's the situation. We are seeing a very clear escalation as Russia is in Ukraine, as we see Ukrainians fighting back with weapons from the United States and other countries as well. And now Russia is seeing this as a Poland-Ukrainian conglomeration. Before, we saw Russia believing they were actually authorized to go into Ukraine. All this is simply just words saying, you know what, obviously we can go into Poland as well. So what we see is the very beginnings of more than likely, probably, a new war starting up between Russia and Ukraine, no, Russia and Poland, Russia and NATO. So we know this is coming. We've been talking about how this is coming. And obviously we've seen a clear escalation and just, I hate war, all the stuff happening between Russia and Ukraine, but we definitely see NATO being a big part of this. I mean, obviously it's a part of this. It's been a part of this since the very beginning. But it's not simply just looking at Russia's words. Let's take a look at what's happening in the United States to show that we are also a big part of this and to show what's coming. Look at this article that just came out. Rumors of World War III. Yep, not rumors. They've been talking about this. Biden's actions hint at a military draft on the horizon. You ready for this? And we see this happening. In July, Biden authorized the military to deploy 3,000 reservists to Europe to support NATO. And NATO, led by the U.S., is currently engaged in a proxy war that we just call the Russia and Ukraine war. But obviously, this is not between Russia and Ukraine. This is about Russia and Ukraine, Ukraine being heavily armed by the United States and NATO. But here's the scary part. The Pentagon reports that the U.S. Army is predicted to be 15,000 recruits short of its 65,000 recruitment target by the end of the year. The Navy is 10,000 short of its 38,000 goal, and the Air Force is 3,000 short. It's also reported that 9% of young people in the U.S. would consider a career in the military. That's down from 13%. And keep in mind, 400,000 Ukrainians have died so far in this war. 2 million wounded. So you can see where we're going with this. Obviously, the elites want this war to happen. Money, control, power, all these things fit into this gamut. Well, they can't do that if the Ukrainians keep dying, and they can't do that if America isn't on board. So if we launch World War III, they know full well the only way to make this work is start the draft. And it's funny, if you go to selective service system, of course, everybody is supposed to register with the selective service when they turn 18. The very first article you look at is return to the draft. Think about it. If they weren't considering returning to the draft, why would they even say this? They wouldn't even be actually on their minds because people know this is coming. In the event of a national emergency, the following sections provide information and the sequence of events in which a draft could come into play. In the event of a national emergency, keep that in mind. There'd have to be an authorization with Congress and the president, activation of selective service, and of course a lottery. And same thing from military.com. And honestly, I like this website, but it's interesting. Everything you need to know about the military draft. Why are they talking about this? We know why. They say, will there be a draft? Well, probably not. While worldwide events such as the war in Ukraine and an increasing U.S. presence in Poland, it's funny, we just saw that, there has been no indication that a draft will take place in 2023. And I will tell you, this article is a little old. It came out in March. I think things have seriously changed right now. So not much more in this article. What is the draft? Why must you register? What if you don't register? How to register for selective service, etc. But I want to talk about a side note real quick. Why don't women have to sign up for the draft? The law doesn't require women to register for the draft, although it is a subject of intense debate. In 2016, Congress came very close to including women in the draft, but ultimately lawmakers stripped out this provision and ordered a review of the selective service system itself. But it is something they keep pushing. So I see a clear escalation between Russia and Ukraine, Russia against NATO, Russia against the United States, because we're the ones sending that stuff over there. We can't send stuff over there and expect nothing to happen with us at all. Russia is making it very clear. Maybe it is just propaganda, maybe not, but they're making it very clear that, you know what? They have no choice now but to take action. And honestly, I can see where they're coming from for the fact that, I'm not saying it's justified going into Ukraine. I'm not going to get into that whole mess. But if you are going against an enemy and the enemy is now being supplied by somebody else, that somebody else is now your enemy as well. We're talking about NATO. We're talking about the United States and Britain, and the list goes on and on. So we're seeing a lot of these countries, especially the United States attached to NATO, are absolutely under the eye of Russia. And Russia is having such a hard time struggling with maintaining that war in Ukraine that guess what? You know what? Time to chop off the head of the snake, per se. So if this happens, I'm actually even going to go be as bold to say when this happens, I think it's all orchestrated, by the way, we're going to easily see the draft reinstated because, again, Americans don't want to be part of this. But like I said before, in some kind of national emergency, it said it, not me, well, then they're going to reinstate it. So what is that national emergency that's going to happen? What's going to take place? I'm not going to tell you what I think it is, although I have ideas too. I want to see what you think it is. Put it in the comments below, because I think some kind of national emergency is going to happen, and you're going to see a lot of Americans changing heart because a lot of them are just sheep walking along anyway and say, oh my gosh, we need to defend Pearl Harbor. Oh wait, that's a different war. What's the next one going to be?